This is Algebra 1, Lesson 13b, more on order of operations. We've spent a couple lessons dealing with this problem. We would multiply before we add, and then we would add. We know that that's 14. We've talked about that several times. We did not talk about division, but we know that multiplication and division are inverse operations. So in our order of operations, they are going to be dealt with at the same time in order from left to right. This book explains it that they said we didn't discuss division because if symbols of inclusion are properly used, the order in which division is to be performed is apparent. So we're going to look at an example of what they're talking about here. Let's look at this problem. Very similar, they just added a denominator, right? So I'm going to look in the numerator and say, well, I can do that 4 times 3, that's 12. Had to do that multiplication before addition. And then I've got the negative 7 plus 5 in the denominator. Now I'm going to deal with my additions in the numerator. That's going to be 14. Now in the denominator, signs are different. Subtract, take the sign with the largest absolute value, which is 7, so it's going to be negative. And now I can divide that, and I get negative 7, okay? So how would you deal with this? Well, if we are going to look at this, we've got to do multiplications and also divisions before we can do our adding and subtracting. So we would start here with this division, and we would copy everything else down. And then we would keep going and find this multiplication, copy everything else down, add and subtract from left to right, and then that's going to equal negative 7. With this problem, we've got some multiplications and we've got some divisions. And notice here, they're not writing it as a fraction. They're using the conventional arithmetic division symbol. Let's do our multiplication and divisions from left to right. So we're going to go here. This is 6 plus 18 divided by 2 minus 6 times 2. Now we're going to deal with this. 6 plus 9 minus 6 times 2. Now we're going to deal with this. 6 plus 9 minus 6 times 2 is 12. And then we're going to add and subtract from left to right. We've got 15 minus 12. And when you combine that, you get 3. Now, I want to compare that to if they had written it like this. Now, this is the same problem with a different notation. You've got 6 plus, and then you've got the 3 times 6 divided by 2. Writing it this way is more clear as to how and when you should do each operation. It makes it more clear than writing it this way. But most textbooks are going to write it the way we just did it, okay? Saxon tends to usually write it like this on the right side. So I want you to see how that works. Going to get the same answer, but look and see which way you think is clearer and faster. All right, we're going to look at our symbols of inclusion. We see here, we're going to need to be able to do that. So we've got 6 plus 3 times 6 is 18. Carry that down over the 2 minus. We could go ahead and do this multiplication here because it's symbols of inclusion, and we don't need to keep the parentheses. And we end up with this. Now we're going to do our multiplications and divisions from left to right, and we just have this 1 here. So we've got 6 plus 18 divided by 2 is 9. Okay, now we can add and subtract from left to right. And then we can subtract, and we get the same answer. Just a little bit shorter, just a little bit less to write, and maybe a little less confusion. They added the symbols of inclusion to make it clear as to where they want you to start. And it does make it a little clearer, I would think. All right, that's where we're going to end here. And we're going to continue to add more steps and more complicated problems of order of operations.